We have a weekly candle close that's coming in about 5 hours. It's going to be a very important candle close because we have seen some major downside from Bitcoin and, of course, dragging down quite a bit of the altcoins here for the past couple of weeks. Okay, but I've been talking about how we are at a very likely bottom right now for Bitcoin. So, for crypto as well, chances are. Why I'm saying that is because we have hit that breakdown target right here. This is the weekly time frame. Broke down from this huge rising wedge pattern. Breakdown target was almost 80,000. Bitcoin has basically hit that. In addition to that, we have seen Bitcoin touch down to the monthly 21 SMA, which I have been calling that to be a major moving average that we got to be paying attention to, because when you touch down to a moving average for the first time, chances are it's going to be very strong supports. Okay. And we have not touched down on this moving average since Bitcoin has actually broke on top of it back in October 2023. So it's been a long time since we have hit this moving average. So that's why I'm saying that is also a very likely signal of a bottom. Also, going to be taking a look into Bitcoin here for the 12-hour time frame, where I have charted a falling wedge pattern, the smaller falling wedge pattern here. It has broken down from this during that candle where Bitcoin has went all the way down to about almost 80,000. Bitcoin has broken back above this falling wedge pattern with the 12-hour candle close, which was the highest time frame that I saw this pattern was validated in. This basically invalidates this pattern because when you break down from a pattern with the candle close and then you break back into it with a candle close, that will invalidate the pattern. So that is a good sign, because otherwise you can expect more downside from that falling wedge break down, which is not good because falling wedges usually break to the upside. Okay. Now I am still long on quite a bit of the altcoins here, and I am looking to continue buying right now, as of right now, because my opinions on these markets, on crypto as a whole, is still bullish in general. However, these are just my opinions and what I'm doing personally. It's not financial advice. You guys got to form your own opinions and strategies. Now, the next thing that would be very bullish for Bitcoin would be if Bitcoin can actually break back into this bigger falling wedge pattern it broke down from. And this is on the 3-day time frame. The highest time frame that this pattern was validated on is the 3-day time frame. So the resistance is going to be coming from this bottom trend line here. That's going to be about 94,000, just depending on which point of the bottom trend line it hits. Of course, it's going to be downward sloping. Okay. Now, that is some of my arguments on why I think a bottom has been set for Bitcoin and basically the overall crypto markets. Another thing I want to bring up to you guys is basically the CME Watch tool, which has done something very strange, and I don't see too many people talking about it. But if you guys remember that I talked about this tool just a couple days ago, like Friday morning here Pacific Standard Time, we saw a probability of a rate cut being under 40%. And since Friday night when I checked this tool again, let's check this one more time. Let's see if the probabilities have changed. Now the probabilities do change on the CME Watch tool as new data comes out, new events unfold. But we're looking at a almost 70% chance of a rate cut now for the FOMC meeting that's happening on December 10th, which is very bullish for risk on assets like stocks and crypto. So what could have really happened? I know I saw a piece yesterday on TradingView that talks about because of one of the Fed president mentioned that he was in favor of a rate cut, but I don't think that is it. What do you guys think? Did something break? Did the jobs data that came out in October that they didn't talk about, was that really bad? Enough to actually just significantly increase the odds of a rate cut, because I'm not really seeing that in the news here. Other than that, John Williams, which was one of the Fed presidents, voicing his support for a rate cut. All right, we're also going to be taking a look into some headlines as well, and I'm going to give you guys my instant reaction to some headlines, no filter, just on the spot. And then I'm going to give you guys the Ethereum charts, the Solana charts, and we're also going to be doing Monero, which is XMR, which is a privacy coin. It's a bigger privacy coin, like Zcash, which has been pumping like crazy, which also makes me doubt that this is a bear market, right? When you see some of these classic coins pumping and seeing much higher highs, right? And we're going to be talking Zcash later today on its separate video, because that was a viewer request. If you guys have any requests, make sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe. I'll pick a request to you for you guys on a daily basis. Let's go ahead and go to Ethereum. We're going to take a look into the news first, okay? You Today, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, author Kiyosaki warns it is time to buy Bitcoin despite cashing out $2.25 million in Bitcoin. Did he cash out? Did he already take some profits and now he's going to buy back? I know that he's been a bull, so I'm not surprised by this comment, but did he already take some profits? Right? Let's see. Robert Kiyosaki pushed himself back into the Bitcoin market conversation today after issuing another warning about what he calls the beginning of the biggest crash in history. So this is kind of contradictory. A claim he paired with a call to accumulate assets he believes can function during a big downturn. So it sounds like he thinks there's a crash that's happening in the broader markets, but he thinks that accumulating Bitcoin would still be the way to go. That's how I'm interpreting this. His latest post puts silver in the lead, but Bitcoin remains part of the basket he still deserves active buying. Kiyosaki's update follows a week of mixed macro signals across major economies and a visible cooldown in real estate and labor markets, developments he often uses as markers for a deeper market break. Okay? So he sees that real estate and labor data developments he often sees as a signal for deeper market break. The Rich Dad Poor Dad author argues that these pressures combined with accelerating disruption from AI are enough to justify shifting capital into what he describes as durable stores of value. Okay, so I think he means that Bitcoin. I mean, yeah, he's obviously bullish on Bitcoin, and he thinks that the weakening data in real estate and labor data developments as a signal for deeper market break. Okay, let's see here. In his view, that list continues to be gold, silver, and Bitcoin and Ethereum. Kiyosaki takes profits on Bitcoin. Okay, so that's understandable. That's reasonable. Okay, the remarks come only days after the writer confirmed selling about $2.25 million in long-held Bitcoin at 90,000 per BTC, a position he originally built near $6,000. So did he buy these positions at $6,000 and he took profits? I mean, that's completely fair. I would have done the same thing, or if not sooner already. All right, next piece here is by Cointelegraph. Zcash risk splitting the vote against Bitcoin. Bloomberg ETF analyst warns. So what is this piece about. Bloomberg senior ETF analyst Eric Balchunas has warned that Zcash may adversely impact Bitcoin at this crucial moment. Why is that? In a recent post on X, Balchunas said Zcash has third-party candidate vibes like Gary Johnson or Jill Stein, okay? So these independent candidates, right, arguing that pushing a separate privacy coin risks splitting the vote when Bitcoin needs unified political and cultural supports. So it doesn't sound like, I don't think Zcash is going to take much away from Bitcoin price, but maybe in the political realm, which I'm not too sure about, right? I don't know that much about the political realm and how they use Zcash. But I really don't think it's going to take much market in terms of price from Bitcoin. Okay, let's take a look into what Zcash is, okay, in terms of the market cap. It's number 12. So it's currently sitting about a market cap of almost $10 billion. I mean, that's still nothing compared to Bitcoin. All right. So, this is basically it. If you guys want to read more about this piece here, you guys can. It is in TradingView. I do have an affiliate link for TradingView. I wholeheartedly recommend TradingView. I've been using it for the last 6 years in trading. If you guys don't have TradingView, it's going to be very hard to trade. What other tools are you guys using? Are you guys using the graphs, the charts that are in the exchanges? Because those are not going to give you they don't function very well. Now, I do have an affiliate link for TradingView. They do have free plans available as well. So if you guys are new to this market, check it out. They have free plans available. If you guys do upgrade to a pay plan, I will get a commission. Now, let's go ahead and go to the next piece here, which is by Cointelegraph. Crypto conditions signal unlikely chance of major capitulation. Lynn Alden. So I've seen some of her videos before. Some pretty logical arguments as I've seen before. Okay. And a significant crash for Bitcoin and the broader crypto markets doesn't look likely at this stage, according to macroeconomist Lynn Alden. Yeah, I've been pointing out that we have quite a bit of reversal signals, okay, including very oversold daily RSI as well, just to add that to the list of arguments that I mentioned earlier. And when you see a very oversold RSI, as we are seeing right now on Bitcoin, we have been to about 23. What happened the last time when Bitcoin was at a very oversold RSI? That was back in February of this year. It did take a little bit more of a downturn, right? It did go from 84,000 to 76,000. So there's still a risk, right? There's always a risk, right? I'm just talking about probabilities here. Nothing in this market is 100%. Of course, there's potentially limited downside, but after that, right? You see divergence on the daily time frame. After that, it basically propelled itself to 125. So even if this is not the bottom, I do think the downside is very limited. But I do think we're basically at the bottom here, really. But that's just me. All right, let's go to Ethereum. Talked about Ethereum here. This is the daily time frame. Talked about a falling wedge pattern here. And falling wedges have a higher chance of breaking to the upside. This falling wedge is still intact, despite that fake breakdown, that bear trap that we've seen 2 days ago. What I mean by this bear trap is basically where you see the bears try to break down from this pattern here, but the candles, basically, the candle bodies basically go back into the pattern. That's basically where the bears got trapped. They thought it was going to go lower. However, the bulls bought it right back up. And there could be a potential short squeeze here for Ethereum based on that idea. Now, if Ethereum actually breaks out of this falling wedge pattern, let's just say by this point, for example, price target would be about 46.50 for Ethereum. Price targets are estimates only. There could be more, there could be less. A lot of which for these altcoins will depend on what happens with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin has more room to pump, that's going to be very good for these altcoins. However, if Bitcoin continues to the downside, that could still drag a lot of these altcoins down with it. Let's go ahead and go to Solana. Currently trading at about $132. Let's see what is still intact from the last time we've talked about Solana. I think the 3-day time frame would have been the highest time frame this falling wedge pattern was intact. Yeah, I mean, this is basically, I mean, it's very close to call. Okay, so it did break down from this falling wedge pattern. That's noticeable because you see a solid 3-day candle close below the pattern, and I think the 3-day candle, the 3-day time frame here is the highest time frame that this pattern is validated on, and you get a solid candle close below the pattern. That is a breakdown. And then you see the green candle basically got rejected, trying to get back into the pattern. However, right now it's very crucial in the next 5 hours for Solana, because if you actually see a solid candle close back above this bottom trend line here, that tells you that this is going to invalidate the breakdown here. And we're going to be recharting this pattern if that happens. And that could look very good for Solana. Let's go ahead and go to Monero and see what's happening with Monero. This is XMR. All right, this is Monero, and let's take a look into the monthly time frame here because I haven't really talked about this coin. Monthly time frame, there has been bearish divergence coming from Monero, even from last month's candle close, because there was a higher high on the price action charts, but a lower high on the monthly RSI, but it just looked like it continued. It tries to invalidate that bearish divergence. Bearish divergences usually tells you there's going to be a higher chance of a pullback, but there's also a small chance that it could get invalidated. It looks like that's what the bulls are trying to do. Let's zoom in a little bit for Monero. This is the weekly time frame. Okay, in order for Monero to look like it has completely invalidated that bearish divergence, well, of course, is you're going to need to see a higher RSI, a noticeably higher RSI on this monthly candle close, okay? However, if you want to look for earlier signs of that, potentially look for weekly candle closes outside of this upper trend line here. Because if Monero doesn't break above this upper trend line here, it could come back down to touch the bottom trend line, and that would be a rising wedge pattern. And rising wedge patterns have a higher chance of breaking to the downside. So this is what I would keep track of if I was in Monero, right? And to get earlier signs on if the monthly bearish divergence will get invalidated or will it play out. This basically wraps it up for this video for Monero, Ethereum, Solana, Bitcoin. Let me know if you guys want to see any other coins in this market by dropping a like, comment, subscribe. I'll pick a request due for you guys on a daily basis, and I'll see you on the next one.